Hello, thank you so much for joining me today. Before we get started, some of you, those of you on video, might notice that I'm rocking some straight hair today. For those of you just listening, I have very naturally curly hair, so most of the time that's what you'll see, but today I decided to switch it up and get a blowout. So I am rocking the straight hair today. Okay, so we're gonna start today's podcast off with a fun fact. Did you know that John Legend, the multi-Grammy award-winning singer-songwriter, was actually a Boston Consulting Group consultant before he became a famous musician? For those of you that aren't familiar with what the Boston Consulting Group is, it is a really high caliber consulting group. So when I was in business school, let's say working for McKinsey, the consulting group is kind of like going to Harvard, but getting an offer with BCG is kind of like going to Princeton or to Yale. It is still like cream of the crop. It's a really big freaking deal. And John represents a really great example of what I want to talk to you about today. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the secret to achieving your greatest success and having the biggest impact that you can possibly have. The secret is really simple, but it is not easy. You have to be willing to give up fine, okay, in the pursuit of great. So John Legend was not a starving artist when he decided to make a leap, right? He was living so many people's dream of what successful is, of what a great job is. And he had to give that up for the hope of pursuing his own version of great. Grammys, y'all, Grammys. And we wouldn't know what he was capable of. The world would not be touched by his music if he just settled for okay or fine or thought that, well, this is somebody else's dream, so I guess it should be my dream. If I work harder, maybe I can make it my dream. No, that didn't work. And I'm not talking about perfect. I'm talking about you pursuing your version of great, whatever that means to you. Because pursuing great is how you live a remarkable life. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about me. I'm going to tell you a story about the time that I was featured in Forbes. Yeah, that Forbes. Okay, so let's start back in business school, right? So I'm in business school. I'm a really good student. I have this actuarial background, which makes classes kind of easy for me, easier than the average student. And I go through school, right? I'm a good student. I'm not the most fabulous business school student. I'm not winning case competitions and like rocking people's worlds with my brilliance, but I'm doing a good job. And I get an offer to have another good job right out of business school. I get recruited to move to Minnesota and become a market researcher. And that's great, right? So at first it's exciting, it's new, it's interesting. I'm super grateful for that opportunity. I'm super grateful to have a job. And things are fine, things are good. But after about 3 to 4 months, I realized that things weren't becoming better. In fact, they were kind of going in the opposite direction. Instead of me living my great, I was starting to try to settle for fine or okay. And in fact, what started out as fine or okay actually started making me miserable. And so even though I was getting good reviews from my managers saying things like, we can tell you're really smart, people love working with you, you're so much fun to be around, you're a really likable person, I was the only person out of my incoming class of like 10 people that wasn't promoted. That was hard, right? Because I know I'm capable of so much more, right? In this moment, I know that I am, but I felt miserable and I wasn't being successful. And it was like, okay, I've got a choice to make, right? I can put in an insane amount of effort into trying to succeed, right? At somebody else's version of great, at somebody else's dream job. Or I can go create my own. And I think you know which one I chose. So eventually, right, I saved $40,000 in 18 months when I realized I'm going to go create my own version of great, right? I'm going to create it for myself. I'm going to figure out that path. Then I left for my 20-month career break and traveled around the world and came back after that to pay off the last $42,000 in my student loans in like 22 months, right? Then I start my coaching business. And I did a kick-ass job of pursuing my version of great. And soon after I launched my business, something crazy happened. Somebody wrote a story about me and what I had been through, what I had done, about my experience. And it was featured in Forbes. Featured in Forbes. I mean, let's talk about that for a minute, right? Like, I was a pretty good MBA student. I was a decent market researcher, but none of these things were going to get me into Forbes, right? I wasn't winning awards at business school for being amazing. I wasn't winning awards at my old job for being amazing. And on the path that I was on, I would have thought like being amazing at these two things are the way that are the ways that you become featured in Forbes, because Forbes is a business magazine, right? If somebody had told me in business school that I was going to be featured in Forbes, I would have been elated. That's such a big deal. But in the end, I wasn't featured in Forbes for doing any of the things I thought that I should do, right? I wasn't featured in Forbes for settling for fine, for settling for somebody else's great. I made something that felt and seemed impossible, but that I really wanted. I made it possible. I pursued my great, even though it was unconventional, even though it was scary as all get out. And that, my friends, is the story of how I was featured in Forbes. And that goes back to show you that the secret to achieving your greatest success, your greatest accomplishments, making your biggest impact, comes back to being able to give up okay, give up fine for the pursuit of great, because pursuing great is how you live a remarkable life. Okay, so I'm going to really drill this home for you right now. I'm going to tell you the story about the director who hired me at my post MBA job. So, okay, here we go, right? So we have this great interview, really hit things off. And I think, wow, he's really, like he's digging what I offer. He thinks I'm going to be great for the company. And eventually I go through the whole interview cycle and I accept the job and I start working. And probably like a year and a half into my career there, we ended up switching, and you rotate a lot. That's normal. And I had rotated to a position where we were sitting on the same floor. And he was sitting in his office with the glass wall, and I was sitting in a cubicle, sort of in no man's land. But I passed his office every single day, right? Every single day. And I always thought, like, I felt very warmly about him. Like I had, like good memories of sort of the interaction that we had initially, and was part of the reason that I decided to come work for the company. And so, I would always smile, and I would sort of always wait to be invited in for a conversation or engaged in some way where it's like, hey, Katrina, how are you doing? How are things going? I'm hearing great things about you. And it never happened. You guys, like, it never happened. And I'm going to make a confession to you right now. It hurt, y'all. Like, it really hurt, because here's this person that, I was excited to get to know and felt like I'd made this really great first impression, obviously, with them. But it was like when he saw me, it was smiles, right? Cordial smiles, but there was no significant acknowledgement that we really knew each other, or that, he knew anything about me or about the things that I had been doing for the company. And I felt so inadequate, like inadequate. I'm not good enough for this person to even care that I'm here, right? And so something crazy happened when I gave my notice and I was finally like down to my last 2 weeks. I started packing up my stuff, and, everybody was starting to say goodbye, and it was more formally and broadly announced that I was going to be leaving the company. And one day as I'm walking by his office, the most we'd ever really exchanged is a hello at this point. He sees me coming, he comes out of his office extending his hand, and he stops me and he shakes my hand, and he's like, I just want to tell you, I heard about what you're doing and I'm so proud of you. And I think that what you're doing is so brave. What? I mean, what? Talk about shocking, you guys. Like, where did this come from? And it was like, wow. In that moment, it was so clear to me. He was never going to notice me for being the most kick-ass market researcher out there, right? Me pursuing someone else's great, going through the motions and trying to make someone else's dream job work out for me, right? He noticed me and he commended me when I was actually being brave enough to pursue my own version of great. Even though it was weird, even though it might have seemed quirky, and just sort of like weird, right? Like, what is this girl doing? It didn't matter. It didn't matter because I was doing me. I can shine my brightest when I'm going on my own path, on my path. And that is exactly what happened with this director. Like, I made the strongest impression on him when I was leaving the company by making this choice to go take a career break. And that was a powerful lesson for me. It was a powerful lesson that just really reinforced, if you want to be your greatest you and achieve your greatest success, you have to give up fine. You have to give up okay to pursue being great, your version of great. So, okay, what does it mean to pursue great, Katrina? Like, I hear you saying that, but what does that look like? Like, why do I need to do it? I don't understand. Help me understand. Okay, here we go. You have to be you, right? Being you means doing the crap that you really want to do. Doing the crap that lights you up and makes you excited and makes you appreciate all of the gifts that are uniquely you. It means embracing the part of you that is uniquely you. It means not following other people, not doing things because you think that like somebody told you along the way that that's what a successful person should do. And it means being courageous. The only way to be the best you that you can be is to be you, to follow your own path. Okay? Okay. Why does it matter? It matters so deeply because you were meant for something great. You were meant for something great, even if you have no idea what that thing is yet. You were still meant for something great. And if you decide to settle for mediocre, guess what? You are not going to find it. You're not going to find it. You're going to miss the chance to do something remarkable and to find your greatest success if you don't. You're missing the chance to live your happiest life. So being you and pursuing great is really giving yourself the chance to live your happiest life, to live a remarkable life, and to leave the imprint on the world that only you can leave. I know what you're thinking, guys. I know what you're thinking. Okay, so maybe some of you are kind of freaking out a little bit and feeling like this mild panic setting in, and you're like, I don't want to settle, but what the hell? Like, how do I find great? I mean, I don't know what great is. I don't even know what I'm good at. I mean, I know things I'm kind of good at, but is anybody really going to pay me for those things? Or those things don't make money, right? Maybe you're thinking like, oh my God, great sounds so hard. It sounds so scary. It sounds so risky. Great sounds risky. I cannot afford to pursue great right now. Maybe you're thinking that you're just boring and you're average and that you're not good enough, right? So, okay, Katrina, that's great for you, but I'm just good enough and I don't really have a great inside of me. I have to follow somebody else's version of success because that's the only way I know for sure I can be successful. Good for you, but like, I just don't have that in me. I hear you, but I want to tell you that you have things that are uniquely you, right? So we already know that you could never be average. By definition, that's just a false belief. You could never be average. You're not average. You have things that make you unique. Therefore, you're not average. You have your own gifts and you are good enough. Trying to be or follow somebody else's success takes a lot of work. Believe me, you guys, I know it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of you. It takes way more effort than just being yourself. Being yourself is not easy either, right? Because you have to be willing to stand out. You have to be willing to shine. But when you're pursuing your own version of great, you have so much more energy to give to your contribution to being great because you're not spending all of this energy trying to be something that you're not. And believe me, I know because I've done it several times, and it's exhausting. Let me ask you this. What are you risking if you don't try? What do you stand to lose if you let the fear of being uncomfortable? I don't want to be uncomfortable. That just feels so terrible to be uncomfortable. And for 1 second to be scared, right? If you let that voice inside of your head hold you back from pursuing your great. What is the worst case scenario if you don't find the courage to go your own way? Well, if you're John Legend, you're losing out on winning Grammys, on making millions and millions of dollars, to be an overworked spreadsheet master and business consultant when you know that you could write freaking amazing songs. And you're missing, let's be real, guys, you're missing the opportunity to go out there and save some serious amount of relationships, right? Like he knew what he was doing. He's written some love songs. I'm sure he saved some relationships. And in fact, if he saved your relationship, I would just love for you to send me a note and tell me, because I think that would be kind of awesome. But back to my point. If you're me, what am I missing out on? I'm missing out on being featured in Forbes, and I'm missing out on the chance to positively impact and inspire other people. Are you getting it now? You have to be willing to give up fine, to give up okay, to pursue your great. Because that, my friends, that's how you live a remarkable life. Okay, so I want to help you get there, right? So you might be on board on the train, but you're just like, I'm still not getting there. I'm going to give you 3 easy, I promise, easy ways to start pursuing your great, okay? So let's get started with tip number 1. Redefine your version of success. Make it yours, right? Stop doing the things just so other people will think that you are successful. Just because you're living someone else's version of success doesn't mean that it has to be yours, right? It can be somebody else's dream job. It doesn't have to be yours. You are allowed to want something else. Even if it doesn't make sense to other people, you're still allowed to want it, and you're allowed to pursue it. You have to learn to let go of what your parents, what your friends, what your family, what society's ideas of what you should do or what you should be. You have to let them go, because only you know the answer. And you're allowed to consider yourself a success no matter how much money you make, no matter what you do, no matter what. You are allowed. You have full permission to consider yourself a success as long as you are living your purpose and feeling happy, right? Like you're feeling good about the choices you're making and you're working to be the best you that you can be. No one can take that from you. You're allowed to feel good about yourself and know that that is enough. For me, the way that I define success for me is listening to my inner knowing and being brave enough to follow it. It's spending time and effort on things that fuel me and help me feel a greater sense of purpose. So if I'm doing those things, guess what? It doesn't matter how much money I'm making or what other people think of me. I'm living a successful life. Now, don't get me wrong. I definitely want to make money. I definitely want to be able to travel and buy things and eat and have rent and have a house that I like or a apartment that I enjoy being in. Like, right? Those things matter too. But if all of those needs are met, and if those needs are really about what makes me happy versus like the car that's going to impress people and make them think I'm successful, then I'm good, right? I'm golden. Okay, so tip number 2 for how you can start to pursue great is flex your courage muscle. What? Flex my courage muscle? I don't understand what that means. Okay, listen, you guys. The road to great, I'm not trying to sell it to you as smooth sailing, right? It is not completely bump-free. To ride this road, you have to build up your courage. And the good news is that even if those decisions feel crazy scary right now or impossibly overwhelming, you can start small and build that courage muscle. When you start flexing it and start working at it and start practicing making courageous decisions, doing brave things, everything becomes easier and it gets easier and easier and easier to make brave choices, right? So if you feel like you're at the beginning and everything feels hard right now, what can you do? You could try wearing a daring outfit. Is there an outfit that you really would love to wear, but it's like, I don't want people to look at me? Put it on, wear it out, go somewhere. If you are someone who has a hard time going out by yourself, like take yourself out for a nice dinner or go watch a movie. Do something that puts you outside of your comfort zone. Apply for a new job. Order something that you've never eaten when you go out to a restaurant. Try something you've never tried. Go somewhere that you've never been. Whatever your triggers are, put yourself in a situation where you have to swallow a little bit of courage and flex that courage muscle to make it happen. I promise it gets easier to be brave. And I've been flexing my courage muscle for a really long time. And one of my first opportunities is when I turned down a great job offer coming out of my undergrad with tens of thousands of dollars of debt. Because I wanted to live in Atlanta. And this job offer was in New England where I had been going to college, and I just knew I didn't want to stay there. I had no idea why I was going to go to Atlanta. I just knew that I desperately wanted to. I had no real connections there as far as finding a job or anything. I just really knew I wanted to be there. So I said no. And it was scary as all get out, right? Like super scary, and scary for my parents and scary for me. But you know what? Just like several weeks later, I received a job offer that paid me more money, that gave me relocation, and that offered me a signing bonus in Atlanta, right? So that's me flexing my courage muscle. And I've definitely had lapses. It's not like I'm perfect, but I practice flexing that muscle and doing things that scare me so that every day I can be a little bit braver. And I might not make every decision from a place of courage, but over time, more of those decisions are made and they become easier to make. So now I'm leaping into self-employment because my courage game is strong, right? Katrina of, 10, 15 years ago would never have been able to do this, but I'm ready and I'm here and I'm showing up for myself because I've been flexing that muscle for a long time. Okay, so the last tip for you on how to pursue your great, how to get started pursuing your great, is own your truth. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever heard that saying, to thy own self be true? I'm going to give you a quick little client story of one of my favorite clients, right? We'll call my client Brian. So Brian had a job teaching music. He was a music teacher. I believe it was public school, but he was employed in a job where it's super hard to find work. It is really hard to get a teaching job as a musician. And he got one, and he got one at a crazy early age. It was a dream job, right? Everybody, his parents, his peers were constantly reminding him how lucky he was to have this job, how fortunate he was, how he was living so many people's dreams, right? Everything was amazing, except that he realized it was not his dream. He felt like it should have been his dream, but it wasn't his dream. It didn't make him happy. It didn't light him up. And in fact, he started to hate it. He started to dread going to work. And when we got together and he reached out to me, he was at a place where he knew he was pursuing someone else's version of great and afraid to let go and go after his own great because it went against the norm, right? It went against the conventional thought that like 25,000 people I know think this is a great job. So there must be something wrong with me because I don't think it's a great job. And if I leave this job, probably I'm going to fail at things because I'm leaving a dream job and everything else is going to suck and I don't know what I'm doing. And even though I want to go be like this full-time musician and take a part-time job to help pay my money, like that would just be crazy. That would be me failing, except it wasn't. And after 8 weeks of working together, he finally got there, you guys. He finally got there. He ended up accepting a job that he never would have accepted before that worked part-time, and it allowed him to find a new balance between being a professional musician and making some income and doing some great work with a nonprofit that helped kids out. He was a really great success story for me as someone who was willing to put in the work to leave behind okay, fine, or if we're being honest, like not fine, kind of miserable, to pursue great, his version of great. Okay. You guys, you've heard me say it. I'm telling you again. You have to be willing to let go of okay, to let go of fine, and pursue your version of great. If you want to live the life that you were meant for, if you want to live a remarkable life. And I've just shared with you 3 tips, 3 easy tips, 3 easy ways to get started today with how you can bring about change in your life and how you can start to pursue your great, right? So if you want, just go out, grab a journal, like get started today, like grab a sparkly little journal and flip it open and just start writing. Write down redefining success. Brainstorm, what does success mean to you? Let go of the shoulds. Nobody else can see your answer, and figure out what will make you feel successful. Number 2, flex your courage muscle. Write down like 3 things that feel a little bit scary, not a lot of bit scary, but a little bit scary, and just practice doing them. When you start flexing that muscle, it's going to get you in shape, and you're going to find yourself being so much braver than you ever thought you could be if you start practicing making yourself do things that feel like they take some courage to do, right? And it's okay to be grateful for something, but you don't have to settle, right? So the way you dig into that courage is by saying like, I acknowledge you, I have gratitude for you, job or situation, but I'm not going to settle. I'm going to practice being courageous. I'm going to practice making courageous decisions that are in my best interest. And the last one is owning your truth, being honest with yourself. When you're writing down in your journal, just ask yourself, do I really want this? And write what comes out. Do you really want this? You might find something like, no, I actually don't, but I'm so afraid of not having a steady salary, what my parents are going to think, disappointing my partner. Like, write, acknowledge the things that come out, because you can deal with the real fears once they come out. But like, you've got to own your truth, right? You've got to own that this is what's holding you back, but you have to own what you want. And once you've owned those, you can start to move forward. You can start to pursue your own version of great. Okay. So remember, you guys, please, I want you to remember this. You have to be willing to let go of okay and pursue your great, because that is the key to living a remarkable and fulfilling life. I want that for you. I want you to live a remarkable and fulfilling life. You deserve to reach your full potential. You deserve to live a remarkable life. I'm going to share a quote with you that sums this up quite well. To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that I've inspired you to think about what great means to you and have inspired you to start chasing your own version of great, your own version of success. This is Break the Norm with Katrina, and I'll be back next week. But if in the meantime you want to check me out, you can hop over to my website, kmcgeecoaching.com, or check me out on Facebook, K McGee Coaching, or even on Instagram at, you guessed it, K McGee Coaching. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.